Hi, I'm Chris Ball from Mashpee TV, here with another Mashpee update. This Saturday, when I was at the Veterans Day ceremony, I struck up a conversation with Sue Dengel, president of the Mashpee-Wakeby Pond Alliance. We got talking about the special election that's coming up on November 28th regarding clean water. Talking with Sue, who has a lot of great information, left me with some questions. Sue then volunteered to get, I'll start with Meredith. Meredith Harris, Vice Chairman of our Sewer Commission, Michaela Wyman-Colombo, one of our Select Board people, and Sue Dengel, of course, is here with us. Three of them, not the final say, not the total experts, but three of the most informed people I know in this town regarding what's going on with getting our waters clean and the wastewater, et cetera. Then last night I was at the Select Board meeting and I was given this button asking me to vote yes on November 28th. So here's the discussion I would like to have, ladies. And first of all, thank all three of you for being here. We've all worked with us before. You've all been great. So I'm all for clean water. I started coming to Mashpee 60 years ago. Love Cape Cod. The waters aren't what I grew up with. I would love to see that return to that state. I have read the letter that our town manager, Rodney Collins, sent out recently about what this yes vote means, because a lot of people are asking me, and I'm sure you're being asked, at town meeting where we had approximately 604 voters there out of 12,880 some voters that are registered in the town, voted pretty convincingly to support Article 1. So people are saying, why do I have to go now and vote on November 28th if we already approved Article 1? And what's this really mean to me? We're overriding Prop 2.5. And I sit here and say, okay, I'm all for clean water. And these people, and I see a lot of questions, they're going, how do we afford this, not only as individuals, but how do we afford it as a town? And I sit here and say to myself, you know, we seem to be progressing faster than, and not for a bad reason, but we're progressing faster than we initially thought, and more funding is needed quicker than we thought, is the impression I get. Maybe incorrectly, but a lot of other people are getting this. And the concern is, how are we going to afford, as a town and as individuals, and my concern is, how am I going to afford to, if things keep going up and up and up, if that's the case, how am I going to afford to live here? So before, you know, I vote yes, I've invited our three friends in to give us some information. So I think, Sue, you've got some questions to ask Michaela and Meredith. So.
Yes. Yes.
So welcome, and I'm going to let you guys go.
Well, thanks, Chris. You know, right after we had our conversation on Sunday, I immediately called Michaela and Meredith and said, gee, can we pull this off? Because early voting is already underway, and then we have the vote on the 28th. But to their credit, we pounded out some questions that we thought would really help to clarify what the ballot says, because it is confusing to some people who did not attend town meeting. It seems to be on its own little island. But I thought I would just go through some questions with the ladies and let them answer, and if we have any follow-ups, we'll do that. And I come to this because I have worked with clean water for now 2.5 years, just trying to learn everything I possibly can, because the lake that I love, Wakeby Pond, is turning green every summer, and we can't swim in it. So
why is it turning green?
It's turning green because the nutrients that are found mostly in our wastewater, along with our storm water, are making their way into the pond. And those nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, are responsible for feeding the algae that naturally grows in the pond, but it gets to a point where it becomes toxic. And the toxicity is harmful to children, to pets in particular. And we've also had some results of fish kills that have happened over the last 2
And
summers.
this is our cyanobacteria that we hear about often?
Yes, it's called cyanobacteria. And our pond is currently under a diagnostic pond study that's about to wrap up, where we're going to hear a lot more about how much the sewer or our septic systems are contributing versus stormwater runoff. So we're really looking forward to the results of that, which will come in the spring. But in the meantime, we're moving on to the next phase of the sewer. And I thought, Michaela, I would start with you. And if you could, would you explain in English what the ballot says? And could you also touch on why this vote is important?
Michaela, I didn't
Sure.
realize you were multilingual.
Oh, I am. Well, first of all, thank you, and thank you, Chris. I think it's so important for voters to understand what question 1 is all about. As Chris mentioned, there's a big election on the 28th with early voting all this week. There's one question on the ballot, and that one question asks voters to approve question 1. Question 1, as Chris mentioned, was widely approved at town meeting. It's a debt exclusion, so it's important to keep that in mind. It's a debt exclusion for a loan for a fixed period of time, which is different than an override. An override is permanent. A debt exclusion ends when the debt is paid. So the question asks in legalese, because that's the way ballot questions are written, it asks voters to approve a debt exclusion in the amount of $4.5 million or less to fund the design of the next phase of our sewer system. The total cost of the design is going to be right around $7.5 million, which is a typical cost for engineering this type of design. And $3 million is being paid for from surplus cash. We ended up, the town of Mashpee ended up certifying more free cash than we had anticipated. So we're taking $3 million of free cash to pay for part of this. The debt exclusion, that is the 5-year loan that voters are being asked to approve by voting yes, is for the remainder of that amount for the design.
So the $3 million of extra funds, just to make people aware of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, but that's only part, that's not all the funds that we had excess, that's part of it.
Oh, yes, we were in excess of, and I don't remember the exact amount, but we're in
About
excess of
15 million.
16 million, or
Yeah.
15.3 million.
So I think it's important, or at least to me, that we have other money available for other things.
Oh, yes, and still do. So it was 3 million taken from that full amount. And I think when we certified, or I shouldn't say when we certified the free cash, we acknowledged that it was more than we anticipated having. So it really put us in a good situation with regard to using part of that money for the design and taking out a 5-year bond for the rest of that money.
And I think one of the things to emphasize, as we had talked about earlier, is that there was a reason at town meeting, or there was a consideration at town meeting that the Finance Committee initially did not support the amendment. And so now we realize why it's been supported once the surplus funds were found. And so we're no longer funding the full 7.5 million, but instead funding the 4.5 million.
Right, we're funding the 4.5 million with the 5-year bond.
Mm-hmm.
And that was unanimously approved by both the Select Board and the Finance Committee ahead of town meeting.
Correct. That was the week before, I think, if I
Yes.
remember, in a special
Yes.
meeting.
Right.
In fact, I think it's important to point out that the Sewer Commission, the Select Board, and the Finance Committee in the end unanimously approved Article 1, which, because it's a debt exclusion, has to go to the ballot as question 1.
Okay, so this quick answer, very quick answer, is we have to have this election on the 28th to ratify Article 1. Have I got that right?
You do.
That's correct. Yes.
And that part of this money that we're no longer on the hook for 7.5 because at the end of the year through, good financial
Management.
budgeting, management, we have extra funds to help do that.
Yep. And I think it's important to say that funding this design now is critical in moving forward. In order for us as a town to move forward with 0% financing on a final project, receiving forgiveness from the Cape and Island Water Protection Fund and also from the Massachusetts Clean Water Act, we need to submit a design in January. So by passing question 1, it allows us to move forward to have the design phase submitted to the state, the Department of Environmental Protection, so that we're eligible for all of that grant funding. 0% loans and the money from Cape and Islands, as well as the Clean Water Act funds.
So by doing this, back to my initial concerns and question, by doing this, we're getting grants from different agencies, excuse me, et cetera, and it's less money coming out of the town and my pocket.
In submitting the design, it prepares us to get that additional funding.
Okay. Also, I believe we're having the election on November 28th because there's, I don't want to say drop dead, but the town manager needs to sign some contracts by December 1st. Have I got this right?
Yes.
To get this ball rolling.
Right. The engineers can't be commissioned to start with the design work unless the papers are signed.
And we need
It's
the
as simple as
design
that.
work to go after these grants, et cetera.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think to your other point, Chris, that you mentioned, why does it seem like it's speeding up? I'm not sure that it's really speeding up with any great gusto, but there has been a change since July where Mass Department of Environmental Protection did impose new rules on all of the Cape towns. So we're not alone in facing this, but Michaela, I think, was going to talk about what their new regulation means and why it's important that we get this design ready so they can see something as well in January.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to throw in, and you're probably going to cover it, Michaela or Meredith, but once again, I'm going off to what I've heard, and it could be wrong, that phase 1, which included the building of the wastewater plant, does 440 homes. Have I got that right?
A little
Roughly.
under.
Approximately.
Yeah, approximately, yes.
Phase 2, which we're going into, which we don't have to build the wastewater plant,
Right.
but this design is going to cover, have I heard 1,400 homes?
1,288.
1,288.
Almost 1,300.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, we've got the big thing done with getting the plan up and running. So now, there's going to be a bigger impact with 1,288? Okay.
So why don't
So-
you touch on that, the new DEP?
The new DEP regulations, Massachusetts DEP has put forth regulations saying that every town on the Cape has to either submit a watershed plan to show how we're going to remove 75% of the nitrogen in our waters within the next 20 years, or to have every resident in the town who isn't already sewered pull out their Title V systems and put in an innovative alternative system. So, like most towns on the Cape, Mashpee has elected to move forward with a watershed permit, which does give us that 20 years. Earlier you asked if we have sped up at all. If we waited 5 years between each phase, there's no way we could possibly meet the regulations that the Mass Department of wrong field, Mass Department of Environmental Protection is putting forward. So in getting this design approved, it really situates us to have a watershed plan that'll be approved by the state, which will enable us to move forward at the pace we're going, faster than we had once thought, perhaps. But remember, we started behind. We started much later than we anticipated. But in putting together, showing good faith, having a design submitted to the state at the same time that we're submitting our watershed plan, I think the state will look more favorably on our progress towards meeting our watershed goals. And we need to
enable
show
us-
we meet those goals every 2 years.
And enable us for more grants by doing so? More money to help us do this?
Right now, what we know is there's a tremendous amount of money to provide 0% financing. We don't know how long that money will be there. We know that the Clean Water Act is offering 3.3% forgiveness, and again, we just don't know how long that money will be there. So while those grant funds are in place, it makes sense to move forward. It also makes sense to move forward when you're putting forth a watershed plan showing how you're going to meet all the benchmarks. Having a design in place shows you're serious.
You mentioned an IA system. I use the abbreviation because I can't say the whole thing. But anyway, I think it's, and I know this, but I don't think a lot of people do know this, that realistically, I think, most of us will spend $6,000 to $10,000 hooking up to the sewer. If we had to put in an IA system, tell me.
There's a wide range. There's a wide range, and not all of them have yet been approved by the state. I have heard figures from $30,000 to $40,000, but again, there are many designs. There's a wide range of types of IAs, but it's far more expensive than hooking up to the sewer.
It's far more expensive, I think, even if you count it in what you pay for the usage and tax dollars.
Exactly. And the maintenance
And it doesn't work as well.
Exactly.
Right, it doesn't work as well, at least
It doesn't
yet.
remove the nutrients from the land that we need to have removed.
And the other part of an IA system, because I know because my mom has one, is that, there's maintenance and inspections, so there's ongoing costs there. It's just not similar to our Title V systems now, where you're putting them in the ground, and except for pumping them out every couple of years, you're done with them. There's, I think my mother gets inspected 2 or 3 times a year.
Right.
But I think one of the things to remember, since we are a resort community, that many of the properties that are on Cape Cod are part-time, and so we're really talking about an IA system that needs to have more continuous maintenance than a regular system would, and many people aren't here to do that.
And then on the flip side, for the pond owners, the IA systems right now that are approved for use only remove nitrogen. And the biggest problem for ponds with that cyanobacteria is actually phosphorus. So while over at the Joint Base Cape Cod they're studying some new options, any of those options would need to go through a 3-year provisional study before they could be approved for people to put them in their homes. So that might be able to be ramped up and get it going faster, but for the pond owner, putting in an IA system will only remove the nitrogen. Meredith, can we turn to you next?
Sure.
At town meeting, several individuals got up and asked, they expressed concern actually over the fact that it seems like at every town meeting we're talking about the sewer, we're asking for more money. Mm-hmm. And they wondered why that's happening and if it's going to continue. Could you touch on that?
I would, and thank you again for inviting me to be a part of this discussion. I'm excited about the sewer being, when we dug ground or put the shovels in the ground and the wastewater treatment plant was being built as of December 2022, and now the collection pipes are going in. As Chris had mentioned earlier, that's to be able to hook up 439 houses. And we went through a process of, should we agree to this, which is what the town members did in May of 2021. Yes, we want the sewer, unanimously decided that we will vote for this. So we've gone through this process of, there's a plan, there's a design, there's the construction. So these 3 different phases over this project that is now addressing 439 houses. This next step would be to address 1,300 houses, or close to 1,300 houses. There are 10,000 properties in Mashpee. Are we going to be able to sewer all of them? Probably not. But the large majority of them, Michaela talked about the environmental protection process, where we have to remove 75% of the nitrogen from our waters over 20 years. This is a project that is going to take many years, but with the one chunk is being done, so 439 houses, then 1,300 houses, then there'll be another request for plan, or we have a plan, a design, construction, and at each step, voters will be asked to approve this next step. And there'll be periodic review. Because of the watershed plan that Michaela had talked about, there'll be periodic review of how effective we are in cleaning up our waters. So we have the original plan for sewering and for cleaning up our waters. It's not just sewering, it's also shellfish mitigation. There is a plan in place, because there have been rumors that there is no plan. There is a plan. The plan was designed in 2015. However, whatever the reasons were, it was implemented in December of 2022. So when people say, are we moving too fast? Well, we recognize that our waters were in trouble in 1970. All of us have seen, if we've been here for any length of time, even if we've only been here 5 years, we see that there are changes in our water. We have the opportunity now of making an impression and making a change. If we wait, stall for more money, stall for more time, stall for more things. We already did that earlier when we recognized 1970 we have a problem with our water. So we used shellfish mitigation to help solve the problem. What happened then? The pollution increased faster than the mitigation. The shellfish died in early 1970. There had been a new building of the aquaculture in Mashpee. We now have shellfish that are trying to survive our pollution. Our pollution is progressing faster than our mitigation. If we continue to drag our feet and we wait too long, we're not going to get ahead of it. So we need to make sure that, okay, we're on a train, we're moving through the cleaning up of the water so that we can be successful. Stalling, waiting, saying, no, okay, we've gone far enough, we're in trouble. We have this wonderful state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plant that will be functional. We have to make sure that we're going to make the most use of it. When it was being planned, this is even before the construction started, the plan was we could either put money into additional trains, as they call them, or ways of being able to process the wastewater, or we could seal it up and then wait and come back and put more trains in to support more expansion of the plant. The plan was made even before construction to say, no, let's put all of these trains in now so that the capacity is increased fourfold. So that right now we have a state-of-the-art facility that can process 120,000 gallons of wastewater. So we'll be able to go up to our capacity, over 300,000 gallons of water. But we don't have to go back into the plant and dig up part of it again for the expansion. So yes, we will need to have the voters involved. We have a plan, we have design for each of the sections, but times change. The water changes, the land changes, things change. So it's do it carefully, do it in chunks, evaluate as you go, and keep going, but keep the train moving. So does that answer your question to help to figure out that we're on a good track right now, and we need the voters to help us to keep moving it forward?
I think that's really important, because I think it contextualizes what's been going on with the sewer, that there is a clear plan in place and has been, as you said, since 2015. And because of changes, there are adjustments to that plan as there should be. In thinking about what we're asking voters to do this week and on Monday, the 28th, we're asking them to approve the design for the next step of the plan. And one of the things you said that I think is so very important is this is in voters' hands. So voters can go and vote for this design, and then they can reassess depending upon what the costs are. When they have all the information in front of them, they can assess how to move forward. So in order to do that, though, they need a design. And as you said, we have a clear plan. Now we need to take it step by step.
So what you're saying is this design, once we have the design, we'll then be able to budget, and that will take another vote at that point?
We'll have, once we have the design, we'll move forward to, so we'll have the design, say in January or February. We'll have to bring that with all of the details, the money that it'll cost, to the voters in May. And that goes the same way. It goes to town meeting, and then it goes to the ballot box. So by not, if for some reason, by not having a design, you're at a dead stop. By having a design, you get to make a decision how you move forward
Okay,
with clarity.
I got it.
And to put it in language that people can understand about their, everyone has been involved in some sort of building or some sort of gardening. You have a plan. This design will help the engineers to lay out the numbers of miles of pipes and the numbers of pump stations. It's the concrete parts of the next step. The houses, the properties that would be connected, because businesses will be connected to the properties. So where are the pipes, how far they go. So it's the actual design of how this system is going to be fitting together with what's already been built. So it's, again, a train that's moving, or a construction project that's one part is done, starting to function, another part is done, be functioning more, another part is done, be functioning more. The big hope, as was in the original 2015 plan, is that with each different phase that was designed, that there'd be a point of the water is starting to be cleaned up and we don't have to do the next phase. Well, our degradation of our water has been so bad, we don't know where that endpoint is going to be. There's still hope that we're ahead of it. There's hope that we're going to address the pollution. There are examples of other towns that have had a watershed program in effect for over 5 years. We've already seen that if you address the pollution, you start to see results. The eelgrass changes, the fish start to come back, the shellfish start to come back. The question mark is Mashpee ahead of it? We believe so, right now. If we wait another 5 years, 10 years before we take the next step, think about your property values. Think about your ability to use South Cape Beach. And we're swimmers, so there have been times we've not swum at South Cape Beach when there are brown bubbles that go floating past us. So we see changes in the water that you could ignore, but as a swimmer, I'm not going to ignore them.
And as an aside, at the July meeting, it was a joint meeting between the Select Board and the Sewer Commission, where they did talk about all the different options of where we could go with the next chunk of the plan. That's when they decided to apply for this money from the state, this 0% financing. So they had to put in an application in August. And that the state requires a statement of design in January to follow up and decide whether or not they will allocate money to us. So that's what we need to have put together to go forth to the town meeting. But if this ballot initiative fails, for example, we are at a dead stop because we will have to wait full all the way around to next August to reapply, and then we'll have to go to town meeting to ask for the design and the ballot. It will just push us back, and it will just push us back that much further when we will have the completed plant ready to go at the end of next year. So it's a timely point at which I think it's risky not to try to tap the money that we know the state has, and they might not have it next year.
Well, not only that, but as we all know, prices of everything keep going up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We lose 2 years based on what the economy and what inflation's done. Who knows where we'll be? You know, the design phase may be 10 million, just throwing out a number.
Don't
2
say
years
that.
from now. What's that?
Don't say that.
Don't
But
say that.
but time, as you say, time moves on.
And prices do
And prices.
rise.
And one of the things that's very good about where we are right now, the Sewer Commission does get reports back from the engineers who are working on the project. They are on time and on budget at this point in time. This is very exciting. So the engineers that we have working on the project and the activity that's happening is really quite exciting that we're doing quite well with it.
Oh, I see them out there working. I can't get out of my driveway.
Yeah, Meredith, could you touch a little bit more on that? Could you tell folks how they can get information on the sewer project and where we are? I also know that you and Catherine Castaneda have been working on an updated website that would be really beneficial to residents to find answers to their questions and ask questions as well.
Sure, thank you for asking the question because not everyone is technically savvy. And so one of the things that Catherine Castaneda, who's one of the people on the Sewer Commission, had started, had felt the need for us to revise the Sewer Commission website. So the website is mashpeema.gov Sewer Commission. That's how you get into the website. We've tried to make the website much more responsive to people. So if you are a resident in Mashpee and you say, oh, I wonder where I am in the sewer plan, you can click on a highlighted area on the website and it'll tell you, is your street listed as one of the streets that's going to be sewered next? So if I am on that list, and if I already see, as Chris, you're also seeing with the construction in your area, there's a stake with green paint on it in front of my house. What does that mean? Okay, so you click on that. It's in the website. It'll tell you, as a homeowner, what the things are that you need to do once you see that the construction is proceeding near your home. Well, yeah, but who do I call? How do I begin to figure out what it's going to cost to me as a homeowner? We'll suggest to you, you and your neighbors should contact contractors and get quotes on what needs to be done, because you'll need to hook up to the sewer line and you'll need to abandon your septic system. If you have questions about the sewer, it's like, I don't have time to read the website, I don't know how to get into it, call. We have a phone number on the website. We have a wonderful person who is an administrative staff person working with the wastewater department.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can I just give Mashpee TV a plug here?
Yes.
In the fact that we did a segment with Ron Bonvy, one of the licensed utility
Okay.
people, installers, who came in and explained that whole process of how to do the green stake. So if you go to our website, if you don't have a computer, or if you don't want to go in, you can go in there and you can just watch it and it explains it. And I will say that the green stake appeared in front of my house maybe 3 weeks ago. I had my installer come over. We moved the stake. I mean, Robert Biauer left a brochure in my door, explained to me what to do. It was very clear cut, very informative. We moved the stake. I emailed them, telling them what we had. They emailed back and said, received. So it was a very clean, easy process.
That's excellent to know, because the questions that you had about your green stake are the questions that many residents will have about not only the green stake, but who to contact. So there's Mashpee TV, there's the Board of Health, there's the Sewer Commission, and there's the town website that give people information about who are these listed licensed contractors. They're the only ones who can actually do this work. And if you see a green stake in your yard and you say, oh, but that's going to disrupt my driveway that I just had asphalted, or that it's going to cross my lawn, your contractor and you together can then say, I really would rather have it come this way. The changes get made with the contractors and with the owner together. There are ways of changing. It's not fixed in stone. The green stake is down. Oh no, I don't want it to go here. There are ways that you can do that. You contact people, and there are many resources. As you said, Mashpee TV, the Sewer Commission, the website on the town website. So we do have a phone number that you can call. If you can email. So there's the Sewer Commission email. You send an email in, you get a response within a couple of days, and then you get an answer within as quickly as we can get the answers for you. Some of these questions have been challenging, but we've made it a point to reach out to homeowners, including homeowners that we went to visit, to say, we understand what your problem is, and yes, these are some of the questions that we understand you need answered. So I think there's a town team that's working very hard with Mashpee TV, with the Select Board, with the Sewer Commission, with the Board of Health, with with all of the different groups that are involved.
Let's not forget the Falmouth, or the Mashpee Enterprise, excuse
And the
me.
Mashpee
yes.
Enterprise, absolutely.
They're fabulous.
Absolutely.
They're all the time.
We're
so.
spreading
Yes, they are.
information and getting questions that people have so that we get answers to people. We want the residents of Mashpee to be comfortable, not just comfortable with the fact that this project is something that's never happened before. All the towns on the Cape are juggling with the same issues. We're pretty far ahead with it. We're getting very far ahead with it. But we also need to have the residents comfortable and get answers to their questions.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did, and I believe that Michaela holds office hours on a regular basis and is inviting you in this week, right?
Yes.
To
Yes.
answer questions about the sewer.
On Thursday at the library at 5 o'clock?
So I hold office hours on first Tuesdays at the Senior Center from 9 to 10, and then third Thursdays at the Mashpee Public Library from 5 to 6. This week, on the 16th, Meredith is going to join me. We're doing consecutive sessions, one from 5 to 6 and one from 6 to 7, to answer questions about sewer funding and the logistics, and to take people through the Sewer Commission webpage, so to show them where they can find information. So we're going to deal with everything sewering, and if we don't have the answers to questions that are proposed, we'll find the answers and get back to people.
So that's this Thursday, this 16th, the Mashpee Library, 5 to 6 or 6 to 7.
Exactly. And then and then to follow up on that, I will be using my office hours from now, I hope, until May, to be able to talk about the sewer, the progress that we're making in sewering. And I'll bring information to those and be ready to answer questions from residents. So that's
And I believe there was some news last night in that a new wastewater superintendent was confirmed.
Absolutely. We've been really fortunate. We went through the terrible loss of Mr. Ray Jack. And following that, the people we've had consultants really step up and keep the town manager, the sewer commission, and the select board informed at every step of the way. So we've been in good hands. However, we knew we wanted to find a permanent wastewater superintendent, and we were finally able to do that last night. So Mr. Meter will be starting with us soon, and I'm sure he's going to hit the ground running and ready to go. So that's
Very
good news
exciting.
for us.
I think one of the things that you touched on, Michaela, that's really important is that the consultants that have been involved are the 3 engineering companies that have been very much involved in the design and the construction of this project. And then they have an engineer that's released to provide the information within the various commissions and boards to provide the information. So we have consulting engineers, but they're engineering firms that have been deeply involved with the whole project since the very beginning. So it's not as if we didn't have information for people who are knowledgeable about the project.
Michaela, we talked a little bit about the 0% financing and how that in itself is a grant, as we don't have to pay 7.5% interest on the money we need to borrow. But there are some others that you mentioned, and there's a range that we're talking about. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. Actually, I'm glad you asked that because I can explain it from 2 perspectives. First, from the town perspective, we are eligible for the 0% financing. We are also eligible for 3.3% forgiveness from the Mass Clean Waters Act. And then the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund will provide, between worst case scenario 12% forgiveness and a more positive case scenario 25% forgiveness. That's on the principal of the loan. So those grants are actually in place. Now the issue, yes.
Explain to me forgiveness.
Okay. Each year we'll get it's forgiveness on the principal of the loan. So
a percentage of the principal.
Of the principal at 0% financing. So it's a
Right.
percentage of the loan in essence.
Will each year come off?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you think about borrowing $100,000, when you have to pay it back with 25% forgiveness, you then only have to pay back 75% of it, or $75,000.
Okay. I just wasn't sure what forgiveness meant in this case.
Right. So the $66 million that we borrowed for our state-of-the-art plant and the first phase received 25%, and will continue to, for the life of the loan, receive 25% forgiveness from the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund.
Each year?
Yes, for the life of that loan. Currently, because as we've discussed, every town on the Cape is dealing with sewer issues and the cost of sewering. Currently, the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund last June made a decision to reduce the forgiveness or the subsidy for now to 12% for future loans. Our 25% forgiveness stays on the loans we have, but future loans right now are at 12% forgiveness. However, representatives throughout the state, the Cape Cod Commission, the assembly delegates, and the commissioners are working hard to get that money back into the fund so that they can resume the 25% forgiveness or subsidy for the principal of other loans.
Okay, so we borrowed 64 for the initial phase in the build-out. So that got knocked down by 25% the first year.
And every subsequent
So
year.
let's just say, off the top of my head, it came down to $50 million. So the next year we take off another 25% off the 50 or off the 64?
It's off, so in a loan, you would have payments that are spread out over 20 years.
Okay.
And each year it's 25% of that.
Okay.
And it's the whole thing because it's 0% financing. And that doesn't change. That has not changed. We are guaranteed that.
Okay, but going forward, if we were to borrow money, it would be at the 12?
So going forward, as I mentioned, people within the state, within the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, Cape Cod Commission, I think our state senators and representatives, the assembly delegates and the commissioners are working really hard to secure funds from the state to bring that amount back to 25%. And that's in the works. It hasn't happened yet.
Hasn't happened, but we do have the 12.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
12 and the 3.3 from the Clean
Right.
Water Act. So,
So hopefully they'll be successful.
but you know, the other thing I did want to mention is there's also a lot going on for homeowners. So you were talking about the hookup cost and comparing that to IA systems. And one thing that's very, very exciting that happened just this year is Governor Healy put forth a tax cut so that when you're taking either a loan or you're making a payment to pay for that hookup, up to 60% of that is eligible for a tax credit if you're a Massachusetts resident. So if you're borrowing $10,000 for your hookup, 60% of that amount will come back to you as a tax credit, up to a maximum of $18,000.
All right, so if it's 10,000, I've got 6,000 that I can use as a tax credit.
6,000 you can use as a tax credit, and as I said, that goes up to a maximum of 18,000. By Mass state law, you would receive up to $4,000 per year from that tax credit. So your $6,000 would be spread over 2 years.
Okay, and if it was $12,000, it could be spread out. How many years did you say?
Well, that would be up to $4,000 a year, so it'd still be over the 2 years.
Oh, okay, so, gotcha.
And you know, if you were down at $3,000 or $4,000, you recover it all in a tax credit in the first year. So that's happening, as well as for people who are seeking loans. The Aqua Fund is still offering loans at a max of 4% for 20 years, and then 0% and 2% loans depending upon income.
Okay, because I think last year it was 5%.
No, 5% is actually available through the town for people who can't secure Aqua Fund loans.
Okay.
The Aqua Fund has been consistently at a max of 4.
So it's 4%, and you could get 2 or 0,
Yes,
dependent upon,
on your income.
Your income.
okay. Do we know what those levels are?
So Chris, you were asking about loans from the Aqua Fund, and as I mentioned to you, everybody is eligible for a loan of no more than 4% over 20 years. However, if your income is less than 120% of area median income, which right now is $100,500 a year, you're eligible for a 0% loan. So you get the tax credit and a 0% loan. If your income is somewhere between 120% and 180% of area median income, which is $150,500 a year, you're eligible for the 2% loan. And your loan isn't going to go any higher.
Great. Anything else?
I don't know, I don't
I
think
don't have
so.
anything else. I think just
So have we answered your questions, Chris, as a homeowner in Mashpee? Do you have an idea of what's expected of you now that you've got your green stake?
I know what it's expected on the green stake, but no, I feel much more comfortable. I know that there's an ongoing effort to reduce what it will cost me as a homeowner, and that there's funds available to help make that happen. And also, we all realize that, you know, whatever the town has to do costs us money as taxpayers, but that's being reduced also by the different avenues that we're going after. And that by voting yes, I am approving Article 1 so that we can come up with the design and the development to go further this process and meet the deadlines of December 1st and January 1st, so this train keeps moving in the right direction. Have I summed that up
That's-
pretty well?
I think you have.
yes, we all agree, I believe.
Yes.
All right, so I got my facts straight.
Yes.
So I'm going to now put on this button because I'm going to vote yes, okay?
Yay.
if I don't kill myself with it first, all right?
I like that button, and I would like to encourage every Mashpee voter to ensure that you either get to town hall for early voting this week, or you go to the election on November 28th, that's Tuesday, November 28th, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is a critical election to vote in.
And to recap what Michaela just said, you can vote all this week at Town Hall from 8:30 in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon for early voting. You can register to vote up until all this week at the town clerk's office, and on Saturday at Town Hall from 9 to 4. You can still register for those of us that work during the week and can't get in to register. Then the election is the 28th, as we've been told, and that election is going to be from 7 in the morning till 8 at night. So I urge everybody to get out and vote, all 12,884 of you, and not let 604 people speak for all of us.
And the voting's now at all the different locations, right?
They're all at the different precincts. Precincts 1 and 2 are at the senior center, 3 and 4 are at Town Hall, 5 is at the Mashpee Library. If you don't know what your precinct is, go to the Town Hall website, the Town of Mashpee website, go to the clerk's department, and there's a link there that you can click on that will tell you what precinct you're in. Ladies, anything else?
Not for me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, this is Chris Ball from Mashpee TV, thanking our 3 friends here for the great information, and we'll see you next time.